Good morning, everyone. My name is Lori Bradner, and I am here at the 42nd Annual Sun and Fun with the Florida Aviation Network. We are here today broadcasting live from the Aerospace Center of Discovery. It has been a fabulous day today, and I am so honored to meet my next guest. I have watched him from the ground, watched you in the air. Mr. Manfred Radius, Captain, it is so nice to meet you.
And the sport of flying sailplanes is called soaring. You know, soaring means going up, of course, and normally when a glider flies a sailplane, he or she is looking for rising air currents and climbs to higher altitude in those rising air currents, and either flies around locally, you know, for an hour or so, or goes cross country, you know, flies long distances, you know, in a sailplane, you know. Now, however, here at this air show, or at any air show, I'm not going to do any soaring. I'm not using rising air currents. I get towed to altitude, you know, and usually to 60, 200 feet. But here I shorten my performance a little bit. I get towed to 4,400 feet at this air show here. And then I release and I fly aerobatics. You know, so it's an aerobatic performance I'm doing. And most sailplanes are not designed for aerobatics.
Right.
Because the sport of soaring does not normally involve aerobatics. There are some types of sailplanes, they are semi-aerobatic, so they have limited aerobatic capabilities. My sailplane, or my glider, is fully aerobatic, which means I can do a lot of maneuvers with it, including tail slides, snap rolls, outside loops, you know, and I'm going to do all those maneuvers in my performance.
And you're going to be doing that tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night and Sunday during the day.
And Sunday during the day. Now I must ask you, where are you originally from, Manfred?
I grew up in a suburb of Hamburg, Germany. And that's where I started in the sport of soaring. When I was 17 years old, I happened to find the glider port in Hamburg, you know, by coincidence. I rode the bicycle, you know.
Yes.
And I found the glider port, and a member told me that I could take a ride for 10 Deutschmarks. I had no money with me, however. I came back another time, took a ride, which happened to be a lady pilot.
Really?
And I was so impressed, I joined the club, you know, in 1961. That was in 1961.
Amazing.
So I had about 9 years of gliding in Hamburg, Germany. Then I emigrated to Canada, and I continued in Canada. I'm Canadian citizen, by the way. I live in Toronto.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so I continued in Canada in the sport of soaring. You know?
I was going to ask now, how did you, I'm very interested, how did you take your interest and your passion for soaring, Manfred, and turn it into something that you would then present at air shows all over the world? How did that develop?
Well, shortly after I immigrated to Canada, I met a young man called Bogdan Wolski, who had immigrated from Poland. He introduced me to glider aerobatics. For the first time, it was Bogdan Wolski in Canada with whom I flew aerobatics. At that point, I had not flown aerobatics in Germany, you know, but it was in Canada, actually. I was introduced to aerobatics by Bogdan Wolski. I did not join the club, however, where he was a member. I joined another club, which was a Caledon Gliding Club, which no longer exists. And two more instructors gave me my initial lessons. You know, so Bogdan Wolski gave me my first lessons, and then the other two instructors. And I continued for years, you know, flying aerobatics. And then in 1977, I went back to Bogdan Wolski, and he checked me out to become a glider aerobatic instructor. You know, in 1977, I became a glider aerobatic instructor with the help of Bogdan Wolski again. Now, the same year, later in 1977, I went to Germany. Actually, I joined a German club that flew out of Belgium. And I was trained in competition aerobatics then, you know, in 1977 in Belgium. And I competed later that year then in the second German glider aerobatic championships. And then later I competed again in 79 and in 81 in the German Glider Aerobatic Championship, so 3 times. And then in 1985 I competed in the first World Championships in Glider Aerobatic, which was held in Austria. So members of my club in Canada, you know, they knew I was heavily into glider aerobatics, and one member said to me one day, "Manfred, do you want to fly at the Hamilton Air Show?" I say, "Well, do you think they let me fly there?" He says, "Yes, he was on the board of directors." You know, he invited me. You know, And that year was something like 1987, you know, approximately, when I started in Canada, you know, at the Hamilton Air Show to perform at air shows. It was actually a club member who suggested it to me. You know, it was not even my own idea. You know.
Amazing. Now, Manfred, I must ask you, because we have many students here that are learning to fly. Many of them get their glider. They start in gliders first because that is something that they can do at age 14. Talk to me a little bit about the training, how many hours? Because people don't realize that the aerobatics is very hard. It's very hard on your body. It takes a lot of training, a lot of physical stamina.
Yep.
How do you prepare when you do these shows? How do you keep yourself with the training that you do? Can you talk to some of our students and individuals that might be interested in what you do, and what you have to do to become an aerobatic pilot?
Right. Well, first of all, one should get experience in general flying gliders. Generally, not aerobatics, but generally. So one is comfortable flying a glider. And then one should look for a qualified and competent aerobatic instructor. Now there is in Estrella, Arizona. That's a very well-known aerobatic school.
Yes.
The teacher there, as a matter of fact, is a champion.
Yes.
So that would be one place to go to take lessons. However, not far from here, west of DeLand, there is the village of Pearson, and there's a glider port, a grass strip, where a gliding club operates out of it. It's the Eagle Sport Aviation Club, Club, and the members of that club, they fly both power planes and gliders.
Okay.
And you can take their aerobatic lessons actually at the Eagle Sport Aviation Club. Yeah. As a matter of fact, my tow pilot here at Sun and Fun is Professor Pat Anderson. Professor Anderson teaches at Embry-Riddle in Daytona.
Yes.
He is a founder of the Eagle Sport Aviation Club. He founded that club. And they fly both power planes and gliders, and they fly aerobatics and both, in power planes and gliders. So that's one place where somebody here, a local, could get aerobatic instructions.
Right.
And so Professor Anderson is actually towing my glider here to altitude as he has done in previous years.
Okay. So he has been your tow pilot
for the last couple of years, and he will be again tomorrow, Saturday night, and Sunday.
Awesome.
And he's a founder of the Eagle Sport Aviation Club that operates out of the Pearson Airport on Highway 17 west of DeLand.
Wow. Now, Manfred, do you still teach as well? I mean, obviously, your schedule's very busy, and you are truly a world-renowned performer.
Thank you.
Now, do you still teach? Do you take time to teach the young people, people?
I teach occasionally aerobatics. I'm not that often out at the gliding club, where I'm a member in Canada, because often I'm on the road,
right.
And some days if the weather is not right, I don't even go out. I'm not as keen anymore as I used to be when I was much younger.
Okay.
I don't have the desire anymore to fly every weekend. I used to be very, very keen when I was younger.
Okay.
I'm 72 now.
Really?
Yes, and
you look wonderful, if I may say. I hope that's all right that I said that, but you look amazing.
I don't feel a day older than 71. And
I love it.
And so, however, I do still occasionally instruct at the gliding club.
Okay. Now let me ask you a question. Where do you're here this year for Sun and Fun. Where are you going? What do you have coming up? Because I know that your schedule is packed full. Where are you going from here?
Well, it's not packed full,
Okay.
I stay a few more days in Florida.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, the last couple of days I was actually in Zephyrhills, at the Zephyrhills airport.
Yes.
There is a swooping competition going on right now. They come down at 60, 70 miles an hour, swoop over a pond, so I watched that a little bit. I made a jump myself.
You did?
Yeah, I made my first 3 jumps in 1972. I have 1,122 jumps now, However, I'm not an active skydiver anymore. What I used to do for many years is called relative work. When several jumpers jump together, they hook up,
Yes.
in chain formations. That is what I used to do, but I haven't done that in at least 10 years. Now I jump because I have the equipment, spend about $25 and make a sightseeing jump by myself. So basically, I fall down by myself, turn around and look at the scenery,
Wow.
And then I enjoy a canopy ride, So I make only about 4 to 6 jumps a year. But I made one in Zephyrhills 3 days ago, and I'm going back after, in fact, Monday I'm going back to Zephyrhills. I might make another jump,
Amazing.
Then from there I'm going to Edgewater, which is near DeLand,
Right.
or near Daytona Beach.
Okay.
And I have friends there, and I might make another 1 or 2 jumps in DeLand, which is also a big drop zone. Then I'm
Yes.
going home, and my next air show after that is in May in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my next show after that.
That's amazing. Now I must ask you, I had no idea that you enjoyed the skydiving. I have to ask you, as much as you got into the soaring, how in the world did you get into skydiving? Was it a natural transition, or what inspired you to jump out of a perfectly good airplane, if I may ask?
Yeah, I was looking for a thrill.
Okay.
You know?
That's a good answer.
Yeah, and I thought after the first jump, now I was scared more than one jump. I was scared.
Okay, okay.
No doubt about it, but you have to overcome that.
Right.
Because there's a risk, no matter what you're doing, you ride a bicycle, people get killed riding a
Right.
bicycle,
Right.
So no doubt there are risks, but it's not a crazy risk,
Okay.
It's, you have to do what you're supposed to do.
Okay.
And my first jumps, by the way, in 1972 were static line jumps. The training method
I
then
don't
was
know what that is.
well, your parachute is actually attached with a line, called static line, about
Okay.
8 feet long to the airplane. So as you jump off and fall away, it gets pulled automatically. You do not have to
You
pull
don't
your
have
ripcord.
to- okay.
That's a static line,
Okay.
But that training method is ancient now.
Okay.
Today is very different training methods. People can jump now together with two instructors in free fall. They already experienced free fall right at the beginning. But they had, before they do that, of course, they had been trained on the ground, so they know how to pull the ripcord. But if they do not do, one of the instructors will pull the ripcord.
For them.
So it's quite a thrill.
That is amazing.
Yeah. And I liked it. I thought, well, I got to do more than one jump, and I continued, just continued.
And so so you've been doing that and flying. Now I must ask you, I'm very interested in piloting and aviation, obviously with the Florida Aviation Network. Do you mind if I ask you how many hours you have? How many hours
not
have
that
you
many
flown?
actually, because most of my flights are short. I have over 2,000 hours.
Really?
I have over 5,000 flights and over 2,000 hours. Now I don't do any,
5,000
not much
flights.
cross-country flying. I did some of it. You see, cross-country flying when you fly distances.
Right.
Then people might have a 4-hour flight, 5 hours, or longer.
Okay.
Those people, they accumulate hours.
Right.
Now most of my flights in these days are short.
Okay.
In aerobatic, for instance, an airshow performance. The whole flight might be 25 minutes or so.
Right.
So I don't accumulate a lot of times.
Okay.
And by the way, the sport of flying sailplanes, as I mentioned earlier, is called soaring.
Yes.
And some people, a lot of people, they do actually cross-country flying. They go distances. And some compete. And there are pilots. A lot of pilots. They want to get their 1,000-kilometer diploma, which is 620 miles.
Right.
You can acquire such a diploma. So many people go to an African country, and I think it's Namibia.
Okay.
There's a commercial gliding operation. They can rent the high-performance gliders, and on the right days, they actually fly 1,000 kilometers, 620 miles in one flight.
Really?
Yeah, lots of people have done it. I have not. My longest flight was about 550 or so kilometers.
Wow.
Which is not that impressive, but.
Right.
But there is a German.
Where did you do that? May I ask?
I took off at a commercial gliding operation in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And the name of the operation is Ridge Soaring, owned by Tom Nauf and Doris Grove, And Tom Nauf has many, many world records, and US records. He may be the American with the most records, maybe, I'm not
Really?
sure, but
Okay.
one of them for sure,
Okay.
And his partner, Doris Grove, has also flown 1,000 kilometers in a glider, the lady, from there. So I took off from that operation, Ridge Soaring, near State College in
Okay.
Pennsylvania,
Right.
flew along the Appalachian Mountains, through Maryland into West Virginia, and then I returned back, So I landed back at that glider port.
Wow.
I landed back but the overall distance was a little over 500 kilometers.
Okay.
And the duration of that flight was 8 hours, 45 minutes. One flight. That was my longest flight in duration. Now, there is a German, his name is Klaus Ohlmann. He specialized in world records, and he does it in Argentina,
Okay.
Yeah. Now, many years ago in New Zealand, 2 pilots flew a distance of 2,000 kilometers in one day. So that is 1,240 miles.
Okay.
One flight, 2,000 kilometers.
Wow.
But this German, Klaus Ohlmann, a few years ago, he flew a distance of 3,000 kilometers. That's 1,860 or so miles.
Do you know the time?
3,000 kilometers. No, I don't know the time. but it
Okay,
was.
okay.
Now, he did not fly from one point to another point, 3,000 kilometers. He kind of flew with a zigzag course. Zigzag.
Okay.
But the distance he flew was 3,000 kilometers, 1,860 miles.
That's amazing.
Yeah, in one flight. So he used mountain wave. You see, there are different kind of updrafts the glider pilot is using.
Okay.
The most common.
Can you talk to us a little bit? Because
Yes.
I know nothing, so you're educating me as well as all of our viewers. So can you talk to us a little bit about the different updrafts?
Yeah, the most common updraft used is a thermal. It's a column of rising air. So
Right.
what happens is the sun heats the ground.
Okay.
Some areas get hotter than others, and then eventually a bubble of hotter air and lighter air forms above this area. you know, and this bubble gets tripped off at one point. You know,
Okay.
it could be a gust of wind that gets tripped off, you know, especially if this bubble is near the edge of a forest, you know.
Okay.
And then you have a column of rising air, you know, warmer and lighter air. And this is what the glider pilot is using, is the thermal, you know. So the glider pilot, when you fly into it, you feel the glider going up, you feel it. But we're having also an instrument showing that we are going up, and that instrument is a variometer, you know.
Okay.
And high performance gliders, they have usually very sensitive and sophisticated instrumentation, you know. So this variometer shows exactly how fast the glider is going up, you know.
Okay.
And then the glider waits about 3 seconds, you know, to penetrate further into the thermal, and then he or she turns to stay in it, you know, and goes up in the rising air currents. So that is a thermal. Now, where there is a ridge, you know, when the air gets blown against a ridge, it gets deflected upwards.
Right.
You have ridge lift, you know.
Okay.
And that is what ridge soaring, you know, in Pennsylvania, where I started my flight, is very, very well known for ridge soaring.
That would be along the Appalachians.
That's correct.
That's
you know,
why you
that's
get
one
that. Okay.
famous ridge, the Appalachian Mountains.
Okay.
So when you have a northwest wind, especially after a cold front has come through,
Okay.
you know, you get usually northwesterly winds. The wind blows against the ridge, it gets deflected upwards, and you have ridge lift. You know, it's called dynamic ridge soaring or ridge soaring. And you can fly day and night. As a matter of fact, in the old days, you know, in the early days of the sport of soaring, they did world records in duration. They flew day and night, and I believe the longest flight was about 55 hours. It has been discontinued because it's very dangerous, you know, because after about 24 hours, you want to sleep. You know,
Yes.
and I think people have fallen asleep actually, you know,
Right.
it makes no sense, you know.
Okay.
But they have flown actually over 50 hours flying forth and back along the ridge, you know. Not done anymore, not for the last 50 years, you know. Now, another kind of updraft is wave, mountain wave.
Okay.
So under certain weather conditions, what happens is when the air moves over the mountain, you know, then it drops down behind the mountains and
Okay.
it bounces up again, you
Okay.
know. And the whole air mass goes up, first down, then up again.
Okay.
And if you fly into the upgoing part of the wave, you go up like an elevator, and that air is very, very smooth, you know.
Really?
And this is where you can fly into the stratosphere, you know. As a matter of fact, I did once, and I believe that it was 1972, I flew up to approximately 35,000 feet in the mountain wave. Yeah. The president of our club in Canada, Walter Schmäler, you know, who founded the gliding club and was the president for many years, Walter Schmäler. He organized trips, you know, years ago to a gliding operation near Colorado Springs, you know.
Okay.
So that glider port was already situated 7,200 feet above sea level, you know. But from there, we got towed either to the Rampart Range or to the Pikes Peak, you know. And when the wave worked, you know, we flew into the mountain wave. But first, we flew often to mountain rotor, which is air which moves like extremely turbulent, the rotor, you know. But you fly through the rotor usually into the mountain wave, and the wave itself is very smooth. It's laminar airflow, and then you go up like an elevator. And in 1972, I had a flight of up to 35,000 feet. And Walter Schmäler himself, earlier that day, he flew a Canadian record, and that was, I believe, 41,000 feet. You know, and that Canadian record might still stand, you know, 41 in the mountain wave. You know,
Mountain wave.
yeah, and that is where high altitude records are being flown in the mountain wave.
That's amazing. Now let me ask you a question. Excuse my ignorance, Manfred. I'm going
You're
to,
excused.
because I'm new. Thank you. What about wind shears? Are there anything as a glider pilot, if you're soaring, even when you're soaring, if you're looking long distance or altitude, that you have to be wary of? Are there things that as a pilot, from your training and things like that you have to be aware of? Wind shears, I'm thinking of wind shears and things like that. How do you handle those things?
Well, you have to be aware of the wind direction, the wind strength, of course. You know,
Okay.
for once, assuming you are on a cross-country flight, you know, and you get low, and you may have to land on a farmer's field,
Right.
you know, because if you go cross-country, you have to be prepared to land on one of the many farmers' fields. You know, you need to know the wind direction. You know, so you check out, you know, for indication of the wind direction, so which might be smoke on the ground, you know, and those are indications. So you know, you need to land into the wind. You know?
Okay.
That's very important, and of course, you take off into the wind.
Right.
You know, so knowledge of wind is important. Now we do like some wind, you know, 10, 15 miles an hour wind is fine. If the wind gets over 20 miles an hour, then for instance on a local flight, you know, you need to watch that you don't get blown away from the glider port too far. You know, on a local flight you want to stay upwind of the field. You know, so you can easily make it back to the field. You know, you have tailwind, you make it quickly back, as opposed to being downwind. You know,
Right.
But if you're at a 45-degree angle to the field, and even if you're downwind, you make it back easily.
Okay.
Because today's gliders have a pretty good performance.
Okay.
Even a low performance glider would be having 1:26 glide ratio.
Really?
That's a low performance glider.
Yes.
A medium performance glider may have to 1:34. Which means from 1 mile height you could glide 34 miles in still air.
Wow.
However, today's high performance gliders, there would be 42-1 and better. The best ones are at least 60-1. So one of the best gliders in these days money can buy, from 1 mile he could glide 60 miles in still air without any rising air currents.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so those gliders perform so well because they produce little drag, very little drag.
Right.
Yeah. And by the way, Laurie, the head organization for the sport of soaring in the United States is the Soaring Society of America. So if anyone wants to learn more about the sport of soaring,
yes.
yeah, you could Google the word soaring.
Okay.
And then you will find the website of the Soaring Society of America. On that website, you can learn anything about the sport of soaring.
Amazing.
You can learn where you can take a ride. You can buy a gift certificate for a left run. A gift certificate.
What a wonderful birthday gift.
Yeah,
or
it's a unique gift. That's right, for a ride in a sailplane. And you can find out any location in the United States. Where you can fly a glider.
That is amazing.
You might even want to join the club. And in Canada, by the way, it's a Soaring Association of Canada. Soaring, and here it's in the States, it's Soaring Society of America.
Well, thank you so much. This is amazing. Now, I have one last question quickly. Given the, certainly with your glider, are there any special engineering? Can you tell me a little bit about how it's built to withstand some of the aerobatics? Yep. Obviously, it's a high performance glider. Are there any special items that you can just give us little hints about that are in your glider that we wouldn't normally see if we were to go soaring?
Okay, my glider is a modern glider, but not one of the latest models.
Okay.
Yeah, you see, in the old days, gliders were made either from wood, or from steel tube fuselage, and fabric-covered wings, or aluminum, However, at one point, and I'm not sure now exactly, it may have been 50 years ago, fiberglass came out on the market.
Yes.
And then the performance of gliders increased, considerably, because they could shape the gliders much more aerodynamically smooth, using fiberglass and epoxy resin. So my glider is made of fiberglass and epoxy resin. But a few years later, carbon fiber was invented.
Right.
So today's best gliders, they use a lot of carbon fiber because you can make a glider lighter and stronger. And you can make the wings very thin also.
Awesome. Well, Manfred, it has been an honor
Laurie,
to meet you, sir.
my
I've
honor.
seen you perform, and it's amazing. Please do not miss Manfred. That is tomorrow night, and your performance is spectacular, as well as on Sunday.
Yeah.
My name is Laurie Bradner. We're here with the Florida Aviation Network. Manfred, thank you for taking time out of your soaring schedule to be with us today. And Manfred, we'll be waving to you
I'll wave back.
the ground.
I'll
It's
wave back.
amazing. Again, I'm Laurie Bradner with the Florida Aviation Network. We are broadcasting live from the Aerospace Center of Discovery. Please come see us and join us for the 42nd Sun and Fun right here in Lakeland, Florida.